There is one place in the world where the trains depart on time to the stations. It almost deserted, where the railroad crossed the mountains, digging tunnels and traversing the valleys to transport you to the times, and no more than 10 passengers per day, and the oddest thing about this is not so. The most curious thing is that not only is there, as it is maintained, updated and expanded with cutting-edge technology, with the resources of the billionaires, and with the logic that at first glance seems to make no sense at all, but it does, and when you understand it, you will look into urban infrastructure in a way that was completely different. I'm here today to show you something that only a few people around the world know them. It's not in the news. Don't viralize on social media, and it is precisely for this reason. It is a part of the engineering for the most fascinating person in the modern world. Welcome to Japan. It is invisible. You probably know about the Japan Shinkansen, the world-famous Shinkansen bullet train, which crosses the country at more than 300 kilometers per hour, connecting Tokyo and Osaka as if it were a lightning bolt cutting through the map. This is one of Japan in the camera in the news on the cover of the magazine. But there is another one in Japan quiet, tucked away between the hills and the valleys and peninsulas, in isolation, in a Japan where Asmal train will depart at 6 in the morning and return 8 in the evening, taking a route that passes through forests of bamboo, the edges of the rivers and villages with under 200 people. These trains, they arrive on time, every time. Now, answer me one thing. Why is it that a country should be investing millions of dollars to maintain a transportation system that almost no one uses it? This is the question that is going to hold you here until the end. And the answer, you move on. You have very little to do with transportation. In order to understand this, you need to know about a concept in which the Japanese call it the Ika, that is, in free translation, N, the region, such as a single body, the urban design, ideas, Japania, city, town, or village, may not simply be abandoned due to loss of population. It is a part of the fabric increased of the network, a body of a living organism. Let's say you have a human body. If a party loses power, then the rest of the body makes up for it. But if you have to cut through this part, she's part of its life cycle, and for the infection to spread. That is how Japan sees as its rural and semi-desert, ought as a problem to be eliminated, but as it is a part of the national body which needs to be maintained in a functional, even if they are silent, and the shipping is to the central nervous system of the body. Now I'm going to show you something in particular, something that you can see in the region of Shikoku, the smallest of the 4 main islands of Japan. There are ferries that operate on a single car, a unique car, that runs about 80 miles of track for the trip. Sometimes the driver is the only person on the train. However, these tracks have not been built to last. They were built decades ago. They continue to be held with the precise, almost surgical. Why, you ask? Because in Japan, the logic of the infrastructure and is not based on immediate demand. It is based on the availability of financial investments. On the train, there isn't to be today, but for those who may need it tomorrow. The old man who goes to the city once a week, for the student who does not own a car, working sazonalero, which appears in the wintertime, for the community that is without a train. It simply wouldn't be in the next few years. Now you're starting to see the logic behind it, and it's more sophisticated than it first appears. But it also has a layer deeper, a layer that covers the technology and automation engineering department, which is the largest part of the world. You don't even know that it exists because these trains are serving the villages, is almost empty. They are not commuter. Trains have in common many of these operating systems. Semi-autonomous BU sensors to detect the obstacles on the trails, with more accuracy than the human eye, the algorithms that adjust the speed according to the weather conditions. And in Japan, it doesn't matter too much because of a typhoon, heavy snow, and the quaking of the earth. They are part of the scheduled communication systems that send the data in real time to the control center located hundreds of miles away from home. All of this for the train, which carries on average from 3 to 7 people per trip. It's not a waste. It is another thing entirely. This is a test of the field is constant. If you've made it this far and you are as fascinated as I was, this engineered that is invisible to Japan, this is the perfect time for you to subscribe to the channel Visible Invidar and share this video with someone who also loves figuring out how the world really works. If I do this, do you know what I mean? Japan uses the baselines, the motion as the laboratories of technology and the rail in a real-world environment. Each of the train as part of a station is empty. It is collecting data, testing the sensors, changing the velorith to evaluate the performance of materials in extreme conditions. And when the technology is adopted in the lines to the remote shies, going to where the Shinkansen, the lines in urban areas of Tokyo, Osaka, Japan, for the cars that transport millions of people every day, the trains of the villages are empty, are in the pool. The secret of the mobility of the Japanese. It completely changes the way you look at it for such a system, isn't it? But it's still not over. Because of the engineering of Japan, to the regions of low density are not limited to the right path. There's another system in which I need to show you, and this is also the least well-known back cutout of Japan, especially in the region of the Seto Inland Sea, is the Inland Sea of Seto Inland Sea. There are a raft of electric which connect to tiny islands to the mainland, the islands in the 50-80s, and at times to 120 people, the islands where it is the only one in regular contact with the external world. It is this ferry that appears in the morning and return in the evening. These barges are no boats on the old motor. They are the vessels for electrical loanwas, with the systems, navigation, steering, and the ability to operate with minimal staff. A few of them to test operation is fully remote operator on the ground in the center of the control, the pilot of the vessel, while a few passengers to travel in silence staring at the sea. Technology that entire countries don't even know that it exists, operating on the route which almost no one does, and where you want to stay in one of these islands, and the knowledge that the only connection to the world is such a raft of electric silent. Tell me in the comments, are you going to live in a place like this? I want to read the answer now. I'm going to introduce you to the third-party system. This is perhaps the most impressive of them all in the mountainous interior of America, in the regions of Nagano Prefecture and Gifu Prefecture, where, in the Japanese Alps, dominate the landscape. There are railways through the Alps, which will operate in conditions that would make any engineer in West out in a cold sweatilts. Up to 40 degrees temperatures reach minus 20 degrees Celsius in the winter snow, which Sotaram stations in the entire, and even so the train will depart at the time every single day. In these systems, the use of technology in the grip of a rackened pinion, a Kindorf gear hub, that fits over the rail and prevent the structure from slipping. Heating systems, built on their own, the tracks it would melt the snow before it accumulates, a pressure sensor that detects the accumulation of ice and fire clearance control, and the one who uses it, the mountain communities, workers in the forest, researchers, small groups of tourists that are looking for Japan, which no one will see if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel in the visible invere. Now is the time. We got to the half of the video and you found 3 of the transport systems in the world are unaware of it. Tightens the subscribe button and turn on the bell to be, because you have so much more coming. But let's go back to the original question. Why did Japan do this? Why do you keep passing trains, ferries, and railways in Alpine populations, which are shrinking for the regions, which according to any of the economic model and the conventional method they should have their own systems of transport off for decades? The answer is 3-tiered, and each and every one of them is more intelligent than the previous one. First of all, the sovereignty of the territory. Japan is an archipelago in a country surrounded by the sea, which is fragmented across more than 6,800 islands. Leave in remote areas means that in practice, to give up the territory, and in a country that has a constitution of the frontier active and a history of the geopolitical tensions, it is not possible to keep shipping operating in remote areas is to maintain a social presence. That is to say, this territory is inhabited, it is attached to, is our own. The second is that the aging of the population. Japan has a population of the oldest in the world, and in the elderly, accounting for more than 29% of the population, is concentrated precisely in those parts of the rural areas and isolated. To get the shipping in these areas, it would in practice to completely isolate a portion of the huge population that has no addresses, no work, and depends on the mobility of the public to gain access to the hospitals, markets, and services. The train is the ultimate luxury. This is the line of life. Third, and this is me. This is a long-term plan in Japan, works with the landscape of the 30s, 40s, and 50 years of age today. These areas are almost empty. but there are designs to revitalize the rural incentive for young families moving to the inside of. The initiatives on sustainable tourism and the development of technology is decentralized. And when or if these regions are regrow, the infrastructure is already there. It's ready, up and running to the test. You are not to build a railway from the night to the day, but you hold on to it generation after generation as an investment, quiet as in the future. This is what separates them, is the thought of the infrastructure in Japan, almost all of the rest of the world as in other countries. They build for the present, to the demands of today, to the voters of today, and budget today's Japan. It builds a version of a future that does not yet exist, and to maintain the structure of a working, invisible, silent, and efficient, even when no one is looking. It's a philosophy. It is almost an art form, and it is for this reason that when the rest of the world to speak on the crisis of mobility, traffic congestion, public transport act, Japan is already a generation ahead of you, because while everyone was asleep, all the trains were still, leaving time with low noise levels for the stations is nearly empty, and with each trip, it's a lesson in the engineering and it for the future. So, here's the window, a small pop-up window to a world of communities that exist out of the spotlight, but the casting silently the way whole societies survive, grow, and evolve. If you're here till the end, you are just the kind of person who is, on this channel, has been done to achieve it. Anyone who wants to understand the world beyond the obvious. In addition to that, it appears in the news. In addition to that, the whole world already knows that now. Tell me, which of these three systems that surprised you the most? On the train to a standalone from the villages, empty, and the raft of electric, and quiet of the islands, or on the railways through the Alps, and automated in the mountains? Leave us a comment, I read them all. If this video has opened up its head in some way, the leaves and the like, it will help the channel to grow and to keep bringing you content like this. Subscribe to the channel in the visible invidor and turn on the bell, for next video will prove to be in transport to recognize that none of the channel you are talking about. And share this video with someone you know who would love this, a message in a group, a story, where you want it to each share places. Such knowledge in the hands until the next video. And remember, the world is a much more resourceful than it appears.